More Nintendo controversies. If you don't have time to watch, here is a summary. 1. Nintendo has made some of the worst consoles in gaming history. 2. Nintendo frequently sues their own fans. And 3. The reason that Smash Bros. Still doesn't have an active esport is that Nintendo is working on shutting it down. If you find this weird, then allow me, Nisse, to show you just how deep the Nintendo rabbit hole goes. Mwah. Welcome home. Part 1. Disastrous hardware. When Nintendo created their greatest rival, Sony wasn't originally planning to get into the home console market. But Nintendo whet Sony's appetite when they asked them to create a disc reading add-on for their SNES console. Sony agreed and publicly announced that they would be working together with Nintendo. Nintendo then took a page out of the schizophrenic corporate handbook and literally immediately stabbed Sony in the back, stating, no, we're not going to be working together with Sony, we're going to be working together with their biggest competitor, Philips. And you know how that went. This led to Sony releasing their PlayStation as their own console, which outsold the Nintendo 64 by 70 million units. So yeah, it did pretty good. This was also just around the time when Nintendo let Microsoft buy up Rareware, a developer who basically had carried the N64, with classics like Banjo-Kazooie and Donkey Kong 64. Now there's a developer I would like and subscribe to. The Virtual Boy. The Virtual Boy is a portable VR console that people were initially kind of skeptical about because of its black and red monochrome image and the fact that it didn't really look comfortable to wear. But then the Virtual Boy came out, and then a year later it was discontinued, because as it turned out, after 30 minutes of play, the Virtual Boy would cause a piercing headache in its players. It seems VR still wasn't mainstream ready. Where have we heard this before? Now don't get me wrong, it was bad for a lot of reasons, but those reasons are pretty hard to notice once you're experiencing a cluster headache. The Nintendo 2DS. After it turned out the 3DS could very easily get broken if it was in the hands of a child, Nintendo developed a 2DS, basically a Game Boy version of the 3DS. It was a lot more robust, which solved the initial problem, but it also didn't have the 3DS's signature stereoscopic 3D, which means that the 3D of the original 3DS was completely unnecessary. I think it looks absolutely weird, but then it sold 9 million copies, so what do I know? Now it's time for part 2, where we find out just how much Nintendo loves to harass their own fans. Nintendo's cease and desists. Let's go down a list of things that Nintendo have decided to send cease and desist letters to, in no particular order because there's way too many to cover. Romsites. These sites have made a business out of giving out Nintendo games for free, and quite a few of these websites have had to shut down after Nintendo sent them a warning through a cease and desist letter. On one hand, yes, Nintendo do own these games. On the other hand, they won't fucking sell them to us. So how else are we gonna play these classics? From this point on, however, it gets a little more morally confused. The Nintendo Fangames. Let's cover the cancellations that broke the most hearts. Pokénet, a Pokemon MMORPG that aimed to bring all the regions of the Pokemon world together for one big game. Another Metroid 2 remake, a game that aimed to fix the problems of the official Metroid 2 remake, including entirely new assets, bosses, and stuff on the map. Full Screen Mario. It was a full screen Mario. Zelda Maker. No Mario Sky. Ocarina of Time 2D. Zelda 30 Tribute. Pokemon Uranium, Super Mario 64 HD, and perhaps biggest of them all, the strike on Game Jolt, which forced the bans of 370 indie developers. Now I'm not telling you to become like Valve and actively support the people who are modding your games, but imagine the free goodwill you'd get if you just let people make mods for your games. I mean, just look at the way that Bethesda does it. Seems to be working pretty good for them, especially in the age of the internet where obviously all this stuff is available on pirate sites anyway. So in a way, the only people you're annoying is really your own fans. But that does sound like Nintendo, doesn't it? And speaking of annoying your fans, we are coming to another highlight. Smash Bros. Melee. For some reason, Nintendo just holds a grudge against their own Smash Bros. Playing community. It seems to have started when people figured out that because Smash Bros. Melee had been rushed out of development too early, it contained a lot of bugs and glitches that could be exploited for a much more deep game. This new deep game was an entirely new kind of fighting game that nobody had previously seen, and the gameplay of which is something to truly behold. I mean, I even made an entire separate video on it. So Nintendo found out that Melee ended up deep enough that people could actually go pro in it, and so Nintendo responded in an incredibly stupid way by saying, no, this can't be a pro game. This was supposed to be a party game and there's no way it could be both. This leads to something kind of hilarious. Smash Bros. Brawl. When Brawl comes out, it has a disastrous new mechanic to specifically lower the skill ceiling, and it's called tripping. Tripping adds a 1% randomly allocated chance of your character falling over when you make a quick turn. Because of this random chance, the game becomes fundamentally uncompetitive. And of course, the inevitable ironic thing happens when nobody moves over to Brawl and everybody stays playing Melee. A ton of tiny controversies like this litter the path all the way up to the present, where Nintendo has finally started to realize that shitting on their own esport might not be so smart. But of course, by their own esport, we don't mean Smash Bros. Melee, because they're still pissing on them. FreeMelee. During the whole Corona thing, a bunch of Smash Bros. Melee players want to have an online tournament. Nintendo found out that these bastards were selling tickets to their own event and making money off of it. So Nintendo quickly sent out one of their classic cease and desist letters, and the big house had to cancel their event. Now, it's one thing to protect IP that you are currently selling and making money off, but when you shut down fan-organized events when you yourself have no interest in hosting your own Smash Melee tournament, it starts to get a little bit annoying. And I really can't see a reason for any of this except for that they hate their own Smash playing community. There's infinitely more stories about how Nintendo treats their Smash player base, but they're pretty depressing. So instead, let's go into something that's even more depressing. Etika Joycons. After the influencer and huge Nintendo fan Etika had committed suicide, several mental health charity projects started up. One of them aimed to create custom shells for the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. After this project had completed its crowdfunding and started its production, Nintendo sent a cease and desist letter, which means all the existing stock had to be either given away or thrown out. The reasons given in the letter is that the shells were not allowed to contain Nintendo intellectual property like the Switch logo and the Joy-Con word. But aren't there slightly more chill ways of letting somebody know instead of a cease and desist letter? Nintendo taking legal action on a charity project kinda makes my blood boil. In case you couldn't tell. Copyright claims. For a very long time, if you made videos or streams using Nintendo games, you had a very big chance of getting copyright struck, which of course led to creators and journalists just not covering Nintendo games, since this would extend all the way out into not even being allowed to show a trailer for a game. Eventually, Nintendo has figured out that this has led to them losing literally billions of dollars of free marketing, and so they've changed their tune. But not before embarrassing themselves just a little bit more. The Nintendo Creator Program. For the 3 years between 2015 and 2018, Nintendo had a Nintendo Creator Program, where if you wanted to make a video or a stream on a Nintendo game, you could, but only if you gave a cut of the ad revenue to Nintendo. Because this means you literally have to join a protectionism agreement where you give money to Nintendo so that they don't take your videos down, this scheme was literally illegal. But because this targeted individual people, of course nobody wanted to sue the massive corporation. This all seems to have gotten a lot better since 2018 when they dropped the program and stopped striking people as much. Although you may still get struck if you're uploading Nintendo music. You know all that amazing music for the Nintendo games that just isn't available anywhere, like you can't buy it? Yeah, well if you upload it on YouTube, you might get copyright struck and get your entire channel taken down, even if all the videos are literally unmonetized like with Guilty as Honor. This of course led to the very funny soundtrack incident. So Nisse, now that you've bashed Nintendo for 20 minutes straight, what would you recommend Nintendo to do to fix their PR? First, learn how to communicate with your fans and reach out to them, and only threaten with a cease and desist if they don't listen. Second, I would say fix your online services. I mean, it's current year, come on guys. Third, try to get every game that's ever been available for any Nintendo console up on the eShop. Doing this would make it so much easier to just be a fan of Nintendo games, because when it comes down to it, we don't buy with our intellectual mind, we buy with our emotions. But of course, with such a massive corporation as Nintendo, the timer is always ticking down towards the next big controversy. Hey, thanks for watching. If the big purple Luma from Mario Galaxy 2 gives you weird feelings in your body, leave a comment. You are not alone. For more juicy controversies, click here. And if you would like some more, then consider liking, subscribing, and ringing the bell. Thanks to Forge, Awan, Harry, Pamba, Omger, Egg, and everybody else in Grocer Gang for supporting me in making these videos.